The finale of Peter Jackson's The Hobbit and Tolkien's novel of the same name became a true climax for many viewers and readers. Evil was defeated, the dragon Smaug was slain, the orc armies were crushed, and the dwarven kingdom of Erebor was restored. It looked like a perfect fairy tale happy ending, where the heroes were destined to live long and happily ever after. But the reality of this story turned out to be far more complex and dramatic. The fates of the participants in the quest to the Lonely Mountain unfolded in ways far less bright. Thorin Oakenshield, the leader of the expedition, did not live to see the days of peace. He fell in the very climax, during the Battle of the Five Armies. His loyal nephews, Fili and Kili, stood by his side until the end, fighting shoulder to shoulder, but they too were slain. Their deaths ended the direct line of heirs to Erebor's throne, and power passed to Dain Seku, Ironfoot. Bilbo Baggins, the only hobbit in the company, returned to the Shire and lived a long, quiet life, meeting his old age in far-off Valinor. The fate of Gandalf is known from The Lord of the Rings, where he played a key role in the struggle against Sauron. But what became of the other dwarves who made the entire journey to the Lonely Mountain? Some of them remained in Erebor. Dori, who had often carried Bilbo in his arms during the quest, and his brother Nori lived out their years in the reclaimed halls. The cheerful brothers Bombur, Bofur, and Bifur also grew old there, as did the mighty Glóin, father of Gimli, hero of the War of the Ring, and the brave warrior Dwalin. They no longer embarked on far-off adventures, taking up arms only once more when Erebor had to be defended from warriors out of the east. But not all the members of the quest found a quiet haven. Balin, the eldest of Thorin's dwarves, years after the victory, set out on a new and far more dangerous journey. His dream was to reclaim Khazad-dûm, the legendary underground kingdom famed for its immeasurable stores of mithril. Deep down, Balin also hoped to find one of the rings of power once given to the dwarves by Sauron. He gathered an expedition that included his old companions Ori and Oin. They managed to drive the orcs from part of the halls, and Balin proclaimed himself Lord of Moria. But this kingdom lasted only a short while. 5 years of struggle with the orcs ended in tragedy. Balin was slain by an arrow at the Mirrormere, and soon after his companions also fell. Moria once again fell under the dominion of darkness. Many years later, the remains of Balin, Ori, and Oin were discovered by Frodo, Gandalf, and their companions when they stepped into the echoing, shadowed halls of the dwarves' lost grandeur. Thus ended the tale of those who once managed to defeat the dragon Smaug and the armies of orcs, restoring the Lonely Mountain to the dwarves. Their fates were a mixture of glory, loss, and oblivion, where victory proved to be only one chapter in a long book, not its final page. The story can be continued by deepening the atmosphere and showing how the echoes of The Hobbit and the Battle of the Five Armies reverberated through future generations and the lands of Middle-earth. Here is a natural continuation in the same style, and yet the shadow of the quest to the Lonely Mountain lay over Middle-earth for many years to come. Even decades after the deaths of Thorin and his nephews, the old warriors, sitting by the stone hearths of Erebor, would tell the young dwarves of how they had approached Smaug's lair, step by step, of the roar of the dragon's wings, and of the trembling of the earth beneath their feet on the day of his death. But in their voices there was not only pride. At times a quiet, almost imperceptible sorrow slipped through. Erebor once more prospered, its forges clanging day and night, while caravans laden with gold and weapons travelled the trade routes to Lake Town and Dale. But behind the high gates, carved into the mountain, one could sometimes glimpse empty halls that, it was said, still kept the echo of the voices of those who never returned from the quest. Dwalin, grim and steadfast friend of Thorin, lived to a great old age, yet to the end of his days he wore at his belt the battle-axe with which he had fought in the Battle of the Five Armies. It was said he never forgave himself for failing to protect Thorin and his nephews in that fatal hour. Glóin, raising his son Gimli, would often repeat, "Glory in battle is worth nothing if you have no home to return to." And perhaps it was for this reason that Gimli would one day defend Rohan and Gondor with such ferocity. He knew the price at which peace is bought. But there were some whose fate remained almost entirely unknown. Nori was mentioned in the Chronicles only in passing, as if he had chosen to vanish from the memory of both men and dwarves. Rumours whispered that he had left Erebor and journeyed far into the east, seeking among deserts and mountain fortresses the lost relics of his people. And among the hobbits of the Shire, Bilbo's adventure slowly turned into legend. The young listened to these tales with delight, but the elders would shake their heads. Don't go beyond the far hills. The world out there is not like ours. Bilbo himself, despite the years, would sometimes sit by the fire, turning in his fingers a small, harmless-looking ring, little knowing that it would one day change the fate of all Middle-earth. And so, amid the clang of forges and the laughter in the feasting halls, amid songs of old victories and tales told by the fireside, time slowly wore away, leaving only scars in the stone and in memory. Yet the legends, born once in the heart of the mountain, could never truly fade. They waited for their time to live again, in stories, in songs, and in the new battles still to come for Middle-earth.